have quorum. I think we can call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Ricard, Mr. Bergin, and Ms. Silly. Thank you very much for being with us. So we will be. This is meeting number 93 of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and we will be looking at the main estimates 2018-2019, Vote 1, under Office of the Auditor General, referred to the committee on Monday, April 16, 2018. I believe you have opening statements, Mr. Ferguson, so we are all ears. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Madame la Présidente, nous sommes heureux d'avoir l'occasion.
Madam Chair, we are pleased to have the opportunity to discuss our 2016-17 Departmental Results Report and our 2018-2019 Departmental Plan. With me today is Sylvain Ricard, Assistant Auditor General of Corporate Services and Chief Financial Officer, Susan Seeley, Principal of Human Resources, and Ron Bergen, Principal of Strategic Planning. The Office of the Auditor General supports Parliament and territorial legislatures by providing independent and objective assurance, advice, and information about government financial statements and the management of government programs. The Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development carries out our mandate related to the environment and sustainable development. We conduct all of our audits in accordance with the Canadian auditing standards. Our audits and our system of quality control are subject to internal practice reviews and independent external reviews to provide assurance that you can rely on the quality of our work.
Our audit work, we help to advance legislative audit methodology and accounting and auditing standards. We also work internationally, supporting projects funded by Global Affairs Canada and promoting better managed and accountable international institutions. As reflected in our financial statements, our net cost of operations was $92.5 million in the 2016-17 fiscal year, and we employed the equivalent of 555 full-time employees. With these resources, we delivered 88 financial audits, 5 special examinations, and 22 performance audits. This represents all planned audit work except for our performance audit on preventing corruption in immigration and border services, for which the planned tabling in fall of 2016 was postponed to spring of 2017. In our results report, we note that parliamentary committees reviewed 72% of the reports we presented to Parliament in the 2016-17 fiscal year. This represents an increase from 59% in the 2015-16 fiscal year and exceeds our target of 65%. In total, we participated in 44 parliamentary committee hearings and briefings on our audit work. Audit committee chairs and senior managers of the organizations for which we perform financial statement audits continued to state their agreement that our audits are understandable, fair, timely, and add value. For senior managers of the organizations for which we perform performance audits, results were below our target. These senior managers continued to be concerned that our audits focused on negative findings and didn't include enough positive observations to provide balanced reporting. It is our view that we can add the most value by examining areas that are likely to involve high risk and opportunities for improvement. En ce qui concerne les mesures de notre rendement,
our measures of organizational performance remain generally positive. In particular, in our internal practice reviews, which serve as a key quality control in our audit methodology, the reviewers found that our audit reports were appropriate and supported by proper evidence. Our 2016-17 results report identifies several indicators of the impact of our work, along with measures of our operational performance, which are attached to this statement as Appendix A. Now, our departmental plan for 2018-19. Our strategic framework identifies a number of client operational and people management objectives that we use to manage the office and direct our continuous improvement efforts. In the 2018-19 fiscal year, we will focus most of our improvement efforts on three of these objectives. First, to ensure effective, efficient, and accountable office governance and management, we will enhance our information technology security controls. In a recently completed internal audit on managing IT security, which is available on our website, auditors noted that we had not implemented all of the controls required by Treasury Board policy. We also need to renew the IT infrastructure that supports our audits, and we have begun to implement a multi-year plan to accomplish this.
Skilled, engaged, and bilingual workforce, we will implement the next steps in our professional development and second language plans. We will also better match our audit and support service requirements with the human resources we have available to do the work. Third, to ensure that we are financially well managed, we need to address the financial challenges that we're facing. Budget 28 has promised us new funding of $8.3 million. This will help us address some of the demands on our internal services and help us deliver the 89 financial audits and 8 special examinations that we are required to do in the 2018-19 fiscal year. We're currently assessing our ability to deliver all of the 27 performance audits included in our 2018-19 plan. The Office of the Auditor General is funded through various appropriations and transfers. Under Vote 1 of the main estimates for the 2018-19 fiscal year, the Office of the Auditor General's program expenditures for this committee to consider reporting to the House is $69 million. Our planned number of full-time equivalent employees is 550. En conclusion, Madame la Présidente, mon personnel.
In conclusion, Madam Chair, my staff and I are happy to continue to serve you in the coming year by delivering products of the highest value. We thank you for your ongoing support of our work. We would be pleased to answer your questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. A very detailed report. So now we will go to questions with Mr. Lefebvre for 7 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you once again for appearing before us. You said that other people have talked about how happy they are with your services, and it's been 2.5 years that I'm here on this committee, and it's an honor to have you here with us and to work with you and to make sure that departments are accountable. And Mr. Ferguson, I'd also like to congratulate you on your impeccable work, and I think you are a real, you do extraordinary work. Now, in what you had to say, there are a few things that left me a little curious. In paragraph 7, you said that the parliamentary, that in the 72 reports that you examined, now this is about last year, it was an increase over last year. Now, for 2015, 2016, is it because it was an election year? How can you explain this? Well, over recent years, we've observed an increase in our report, which are considered by parliamentary committees. In particular, I would say that most of this increase could have to do with the role of this committee, the Public Accounts Committee. I think that this committee works well studying our reports, and we're very pleased with this committee's work in studying all of our reports. And I think it's thanks to the work of your committee that the percentage has increased. And there's another facet to all of this. I think it's important that other committees, for example, the Environment Committee, I think they consider the Environment Commissioner's reports. I think this is an important thing, and there's work for us to do that remains to be done on certain other committees in the consideration of our reports. Well, thank you. Well, I'm just curious why in the past the committee seemed to study certain things less. Why were they less, did they consider your reports to a lesser extent than today? Well, there are several reasons. In any given year, for example, in an election year, the number of meetings there's simply fewer meetings available to study reports. But in the past, the committee of this practice, the practice of this committee was to look at, I believe, 4 reports or 4 chapters per report. Although there are 7 audits, your committee decided to review 4. I find that this committee is very conscious of trying to review all of our audits. In paragraph 13 of your speech in English, you say,
$8.3 million. This will help us address some of the demands on our internal services and help us deliver the 89 financial audits and 8 special examinations that we're here to do. So I'm just curious by the word some. This will help us address some of the demands. That means you have a lot more demands, and is this budget increase is not enough to address all of the demands? So obviously the word some really piqued my curiosity here.
So yes, and you were right to pick up on that word. Yeah.
It was there for a reason, I assume.
So we have done an analysis lately of the workload that we have and the things that we have to do, and the cost of being able to handle the extra work that we have in particularly our financial audit practice, also in our internal services, and to maintain the work that we do in our performance audits. All of those together, based on our estimate, is going to take more than $8.3 million. Okay. Again, we are very glad to see that in this budget we're receiving $8.3 million. That will.
And sorry, and when was the last increase to your budget? Because I don't think I saw that in your.
No, it's been. I mean, the last increase that would be a real increase, not just sort of inflationary, yes, and that type of thing. I'm not sure. It would have been before my time. I started in 2011. Wow. Okay. It would have been before that. So yes, from and from all of those points of view, this $8.3 million is appreciated. However, in the time period, we have to deal with things like some new audit mandates, the infrastructure bank, The Windsor-Detroit Bridge, as that gets up and running, right, there are some things there that are new financial statement audit mandates that we have to do. The extra work that we have to do now in auditing the payroll expenses of the federal government because of the Phoenix system and the change in the way that that system manages payroll, that takes us much more time and effort. And over the last number of years, in order to keep our number of performance audits up sort of to a level to provide to the committee, we have had to let slide some of our knowledge of business work, whereby we don't produce an audit report, but we really try and get in and understand what's going on in departments. And that's something that we're going to have to figure out how we get back. We can go for a year or two without doing as much of that as we should, but at some point our knowledge of sort of the whole government picture becomes a bit stale, and we need to figure out how to go back and get that knowledge. So that's why we used some in there. It's going to help us. As you said, it's the first time we've received an increase in a number of years, but you know, we do have a number of demands on us to be able to meet our legislative mandate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson. Monsieur Deltel, pour 7 minutes.
Bonjour, Madame la Présidente, contente de vous voir à cette fonction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to see you in the chair's chair. Yeah, I'm usually on the other side. Welcome. Thank you, Auditor General, and thank you, gentleman, lady. I'd like to congratulate you, Mr. Ferguson, on the quality of your French. Now, I was listening to your comments, and there are 4 points I'd like to broach with you. It's always interesting to audit the Auditor General. Now, I once questioned the Auditor General of Quebec, and I said, "Who audits you, sir?" First point, you were talking about the number of reports that you signed. There were 88 and so many millions of dollars, $92 million. Now, is every report unique? Is there a budgetary cycle that mandates that you have to write such and such a report? No, we aren't bound by that kind of cycle. What I find with our performance audits in particular is that we identify gaps in programs, and then at the end we might want funds added to programs in order to deal with problems. So when we have the opportunity to realize savings in programs, we identify these possibilities of savings. But as a general rule, we have objectives for each of our audits, but these objectives are just to make sure that the program works as it's supposed to and see if there are any shortcomings in the program. We don't have as an objective to find certain amounts of money or nothing like that.
To make an investigation, because your report, we're talking about investigation. Investigation can be an open bar, because, you know, we always want to know something else. We want to know something else. Oh, we have addressed this issue, but there is some other things that we should address for this report. So when you launch a report, when you start an inquiry for a report, do you have a budget in your mind, or is it, okay, we will do it just as long as jusqu'à ce que ce soit terminé?
Okay.
Until it's done. Well, I'm sorry. I think I was talking about budget and results, but overall, for each audit, we do have a budget for the time, the amount of time, and we have an objective for each of our audits. It usually takes 6,000 to 8,000 hours to complete a performance audit. And we have a process, and the first stage in our process is to plan the audit, to determine the time necessary, and then we have the various steps of doing the audit. So we start with a budget, but we also have a process to help us determine how long the audit will take in order to make sure that all work can be done in a given amount of time and that we won't have to deal with any questions at the end of the audit. Well, do you assess things at the end of a report? How much it costs? We have 2 stages during which we review the budget, and we do this in 2 ways. I said in my opening statement that we have a budget for the number of hours it'll take, for example, if it's 8,000 hours. But we also have a plan. We plan to table the report at a given time. With respect to performance audits, our process is to see whether or not we have respected certain aspects of our budget, both the number of hours and the date that this should be tabled, that it should be tabled. Well, 88 reports for 92 million. That's so much money for each audit. Yes, I believe we have a report on that very subject. For performance audits, I believe the cost for each of the audits is about $1.3 million to complete the entire process. And for financial audits, we have some that are smaller. For example, the financial audits of the Government of Canada, and that costs more. I think that's the one that costs the most of all our audits. But for performance audits, I think on average it's $1 to $1.4 million. Well, I have another point I'd like to take up with you, but I'll do that later. Does it ever happen that you hire freelance experts? Because you're dealing with the entire government administration, from prisons to airports. Does it sometimes happen that you hire these people? And how do you make sure that these people are neutral and objective? Well, first of all, there are a great many aspects to your question. Our auditors, when they do performance audits, are people with various skill sets. We have engineers, lawyers. They're all people who master a certain subject. They're not chartered professional accountants. We have some of them in our audit, in our performance audits, but our auditors have other skills and competences. We make sure that people have the competencies necessary to review a given subject. It's also important sometimes to have recourse to more assistants or different assistants when we're doing what we do. For example, actuaries or actuarial professionals. Sometimes we have to hire these people, and it's important to make sure that people are independent and objective. And we have an assessment process to make sure they are independent. Thank you. Ms. Moore, thank you very much. In your objectives having to do with bilingual skilled workers, I'd like to congratulate you on your French as well. I see that you've really improved. So I have a question on this with respect that you didn't reach your goal with certain directors. Now, can you tell me what the issue is with these two people and if they'll be able to respond to language requirements for the next fiscal year? Yes, I'll begin the answer and then I'll ask Susan to add details. A few years ago now, we observed that there were directors in certain positions with the authority to supervise others, and these people did not have the necessary skill in the second language, French in particular, and we implemented 3 years ago a strategy to ensure that all directors and all auditors, senior auditors, would have the required language skill. We wanted to increase our capacity in both official languages, but we still have work to do, and I will ask Susan to give you the details. Well, as you know, there are 3 aspects to being perfectly bilingual. There are 3 things: oral communication, reading, and also writing skills. So it happens from time to time that someone might have more difficulty in reaching the CBC level in all 3 aspects. So sometimes there could be someone, if there's someone who hasn't reached this level, it might be that they haven't reached the level in one of these aspects. This is someone who can do their daily work, but I can tell you that language training is something where if someone doesn't have the levels at all 3 aspects, so that person is in language training to reach that level. Thank you. And also, according to the departmental plan, you made a comparative analysis with respect to ACS Plus. What made you decide that it wasn't necessary? And can you give us an idea of the gender balance in the department? Did you do a comparative gender study? Well, when it comes to the balance between men and women, we have over 62% women. Okay. So in order to achieve a balance, we might need more men. Well, I wanted to know why you'd chosen this, so thank you. That answers my question. And now, I'd like to know, what was the impact of Phoenix on your department? Where was there employee absence? Were people significantly affected? Was the Office of the Auditor General one of the happy few to have avoided these consequences? Well, I'll start here, and then I'll ask Susan to fill you in with details. Well, of course, yes, our employees have been affected by Phoenix. But I believe that our situation is somewhat different. We have other ways of managing this sort of problem, but almost all our employees who were affected by Phoenix Well, we had ways to manage and deal with these problems perhaps a little more quickly than other organizations, but I'll let Susan fill you in. Well, I think we were quite lucky because we have a pay team in situ. So once we realized, when Phoenix came in, once we realized that it was a situation that had greatly changed pay operations, we increased the number of people who worked on payroll. So we increased our employees, those particular employees, by 40% to make sure that things were properly done. So our employees have been affected, but not to the same degree as other people in the public service. So no major issues that people have problems in their private life because of pay issues. Well, I can tell you that each year we look at the retention level, and it's remained stable year in, year out. I do have statistics, and it seems that it remains pretty much the same, so there have been no people leaving because of this. 40 seconds, I guess. Again, according to the department plan, the Office of the Auditor General is dealing with certain issues, especially with corporate services. And this situation is harming your ability to provide essential services and is undermining the morale of your employees. Can you say more about this and about what you've observed about the morale of your employees at the present time? Well, are you talking about the workload? Well, we have a great deal of work to do, as is the case in many other departments. But for our administrative services, there are a great many requirements for people. We also have assessed our level, just how well we've respected the various norms and policies. And we identified shortcomings in our practices, for example, with respect to official languages. And we want to bring in certain activities in order to reduce the stress for our employees. And I think it's about the same thing when it comes to Phoenix. It's thanks to the work of people like Susan and her team that we've been able to manage these problems. But it's a great deal of work. It takes a great deal of effort on the part of our employees. And I'm very grateful for all the work that our employees have done with a view to settling certain situations where there was a great workload. Thank you very much. Before I ask Mr. Chandra, I'd like to thank you for I'd like to congratulate you on retaining your pay people. Mr. Chan, 7 minutes.
I want to start off by thanking the Auditor General, his Assistant AG, and the principals here today. Your work is tremendous, and you have clearly commanded the respect of this committee and the respect of the departments through your objectivity, through your impartiality, and the professionalism in which you carry out your work, and honestly and with integrity speaking to how government can improve the service that they provide to Canadians, and how they can be held more accountable and can continue to strive to improve themselves and the work that they do for the public. You, in your report today, Mr. AG, did what I would have expected you as an auditor to do. You highlighted areas in which you believe the work of your staff and your team can be improved. And specifically, you talked about the fact that your audits and quality assurance processes themselves are subject to external independent reviews. Can you tell me a bit more about whom is retained to conduct those reviews, as well as what some of the findings, examples of what they might find with respect to improving the work that you do?
And I guess that goes back to Monsieur Deltel's opening comments about who audits the auditor, essentially. So there are a number of things that we do to make sure of the quality of our work. And professional accounting standards start with requiring us to have a system of quality control ourselves. So people that make sure we will have quality reviewers, for example, on audits to make sure that the practitioners are following what they are supposed to do. But then we also have a couple of people, probably a team of 3 people, who are engaged in what we call quality review of our own files. So they're our own people. They are attached to our internal audit shop, and they look at our audit files to make sure that our audits were done in accordance with standards and that our audit files support our findings. In addition to that, on our financial audit side, and those people in quality review do that for both our performance audits and our financial audits. On the financial audit side, the various institutes of chartered professional accountants will come in and they will inspect our files from time to time to make sure that we are conducting our files in accordance with auditing standards as well. So they're not part of our office. They are the institute of, for example, the Institute of Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, and this will happen in all of the areas, all of the places where we have offices. So we have offices in Halifax, Montreal, here in Ottawa, Edmonton, and Vancouver. So any of those offices can be subject to a review by the provincial institute in those provinces. We have an external audit done of our financial statements. The external auditor is appointed by Treasury Board, not by us. They audit our financial statements. And finally, about once every 10 years, we try to, we make sure that we bring in a team of people, what we call a peer review, to do a peer review. The last one was led by the Australian National Audit Office. So again, they came in to make sure that we were following proper auditing standards in our work. That was done almost 10 years ago. So we are in the process now of having another one. It's now in the planning stage. It's being led by the National Audit Office of South Africa, and it will have representatives from other national audit offices. I've forgotten which ones right now. But so there are a number of different ways that both internally and externally that we subject ourselves to review.
Outside of accounting practices and how you conduct your audits, do you have folks that are looking at, for example, the governance of your staff and the management practices? Is that taken into consideration?
So that would be done internally, and I mentioned in my opening statement, for example, that so that we did some work on our IT and our IT security. So what we did there was, first, the people responsible for our IT environment, they did a self-assessment, and they hired somebody to help them do a self-assessment of whether we were complying with Treasury Board policies on IT security, whether we were doing everything that we were supposed to be doing on IT security. At the same time, we kicked off an internal audit by our internal auditors to look and make sure that that self-assessment was going to be done the right way. And the internal auditors reported directly to me on their findings. They didn't report to the team that was involved in doing the IT security. In the course of that, we found a number of places where we need to improve on our IT security. And I guess in conjunction with the fact that we had also identified that we had not complied with everything that we were supposed to on official languages in the past, and we identified these weaknesses in our IT management, we kicked off another project to look at our compliance overall, whereby we went through and did an inventory of what are all of the things we are supposed to comply with, and can we say whether or not that we comply with them. So we have quite a bit of work underway on our whole governance. We have an audit committee ourselves of people made up of primarily of 3 external members. So that's another way that we ensure proper governance of the office. So we have a number of those underway. But again, most of it is probably internal as opposed to somebody external doing it.
Mr. AG, you talked about security controls that...
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off. Sorry. Mr. Nuttall for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the Auditor General and the team for the work, which is continually a success. And we've had an opportunity to look at quite a number of reports over the past while, and I've only had the opportunity to sit on this committee since September, but I am very proud of the work that's done by your department, and obviously that's done with great leadership and also great staff right down through the organization. I guess there's a couple of questions, and I know that it was touched on by Monsieur Lefebvre a few minutes ago. The 2014 percentages related to committees seeing the reports from the Auditor General's office, were they more in line with the 2016? And if we don't have that information, I understand it's a...
I believe that we do have those numbers. And we've seen an increase over the last couple of years on the number of hearings we have. So I guess in 14-15, all committees for the reports so for the Auditor General, and I guess this is for the PAC committee, in 2014-15, 42% of our reports were, had a hearing with the Public Accounts Committee. Then the year after, in 15-16, it was 47%. And then, in fact, last year, in terms of, and I know the numbers that I'm giving you are slightly different, but last year, in terms of the number, in 16-17, I guess, in terms of the number of reports we presented and the number of reports that the Public Accounts heard, it was actually 100%. So if you just look at this committee's performance, it went from 42% to 47% to 100%. In terms of all of our audits and all committees, in 14-15 it was 44%. In 15-16 it went up to 59%, and then in 16-17 it went up to 72%. So yes, between 14-15 and 15-16, there was a slight improvement, not a big improvement, and then it was really in 16-17, particularly through the work of this committee. And I would like to say that, I'm very grateful that you said you're proud of the work that we do, but I think you should be proud of the work that this committee does. It's only because of the work that this committee does on the work that we do that we get the that we can get results. So I think seeing that this committee is is very engaged in all of the work we do, I think that is very much going to add to our ability to have an impact.
Certainly, and I think, look, the reality is that we're able to do our job pretty effectively and efficiently in comparison with the past, because I think the work that's coming before us has been very solid. But to get away from that, I have two questions that I'd like to hear answers on. Where do you believe within the department is the greatest opportunity in terms of finding efficiency or increasing the effectiveness of the service that's provided to other departments?
Within our department?
Yes.
So I think there are a couple of things, and that is very much something that we are focused on, is trying to understand how can we add more value. Again, I think Monsieur Deltel rightly pointed out the cost of each of our audits. And the way that I keep putting it to people is, if departments had to pay for our audits, and if I went into a department to a deputy minister and said, "Here's your invoice for $1.4 million," how many deputy ministers would say, "Wait a minute, I'll get my checkbook"? And how many deputy ministers would say, "Well, wait a minute, I don't think I got $1.4 million worth of value out of that," right? And I think that's a question that we need to ask ourselves on every one of our audits that we do. In terms of, I think, getting more efficiency and more value on our performance audits, I think it's very much being able to identify where things need to improve in an organization, helping other organizations make those improvements. I think in our financial audit, we need to find ways of spending less time while still respecting auditing standards, but spending less time just on getting the audit opinion out, because the only financial statement audit that I think you people are probably aware of is the one that we do of the Government of Canada, right? Well, as I said in my opening statement, we do 89 financial statement audits. So we need to reduce, I think, the amount of time that we spend just on getting to that two-page audit opinion on financial statements, and we need to find ways to spend more time on internal controls or other ways to add value in our financial audit. So I think there are still lots of opportunities for us to be able to increase our value proposition.
I'm sorry, Mr. Nuttall. I have Mr. Area now for 5 minutes, please.
Mr. Ferguson, Susan, congratulations on 62% women. I think you are a good role model for other departments. How diverse your employees are in terms of Indigenous people, visible minorities, people with disability?
I can answer that. So we do an employment equity report every year for the 4 underrepresented groups protected under the Canadian Human Rights Act. And as you know, the statistics on women are very, very good. When it comes to persons with handicaps and minorities, visible minorities, and Indigenous people, we meet the market availability in all of the groups, with the exception of visible minority. We're slightly below.
Is it because of the bilingual requirement?
That's a good question. I don't think it is, because
but I'll tell you, a lot of Canadians who are multilingual, but that doesn't include knowledge of both official languages. There's a strong feeling, not feeling, is a fact if you ask me, that they are shut out of the federal government employment. So, in your strategy to take care of the directors or senior auditors, I am speculating here. If 2 chartered accountants apply and one is bilingual, another is unilingual, my guess is that you will automatically recruit the bilingual person.
So when we're doing our recruiting, so something like competency in both official languages might be a deciding factor, but if one candidate is clearly better than the other, if it is not a position that requires a level of both official languages, then we will hire the person with the competencies, and it is our plan at that point to try and help them get to a point of learning their second language. Remembering that we have a requirement for our supervisors.
When it comes to senior auditors, directors, most of those positions are bilingual.
If it is
and then automatically it will go to a person with knowledge of both official languages.
If it's a supervisor position, a person supervising other staff, then those staff by law have the right to be supervised in the language of their choice.
So that will shut out the unilingual. When I say unilingual, people who have got knowledge of multiple languages, but that doesn't include both English and French, they get shut out.
If somebody does not have, if it is a bilingual required position, and somebody does not have the requirement.
I'm sorry to cut you off. And what was your budget and actual spending last year for language training?
We can get you the details of that.
Yeah.
You know, but again, we put a lot of effort and a lot into that language training.
When you recruited, I'm sure you must have recruited quite a number of people. How many unilingual candidates were recruited?
Can I? One of our main intakes for new employees is our student recruiting, where we recruit right out of university. So new people with a new master's
degree. But the students will not automatically come into the full-time job positions, right?
Well, when I say the student, it's a development program.
Straight audit trainees, so they are permanent and full-time employees.
Right.
And all of them will be absorbed?
Well, exactly. So those who continue on and achieve their CPA are automatically hired on. Everyone who's hired on as a performance auditor would have a 2-year development program and would become...
And also compared to last year, what is your budget for language training this year?
We're just checking.
For language training, it was $2 million that we spent on
what
language
was
training.
last year budget and actual spending?
It's essentially the same. So it's about $2 million. We budget around $2 million, and we spent $2 million.
Okay. This year also the same amount has been budgeted.
Yes.
And you know, one of your reports shows that the total number of staff has got reduced from 570 to 550. Why is that?
Well, you know, that's, I guess, just you know, working within our budget. There will be various different things that require us, you know, we have to put more effort into our IT. There are other types of costs that we have to cover. So in order to work within our budget, we have to reduce the number of staff. Now here we're talking, if you're talking about sort of the upcoming fiscal year, is that the 550 number that you're referring to? Remembering as well that the numbers we are presenting here are just based on the main estimate number, because that's what the committee needs to approve, is the main estimate number. So the 550 that we are projecting is based on what is included in our main estimates, with the additional $8.3 million which will come through in a supplementary estimate. We will be able to hire some more staff with that as well. So we will be able to increase the numbers once that happens, but that happens through a different process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson. Mr. Nuttall for minutes, shared with Mr. McCauley.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be splitting my time with Mr. McCauley. Just a follow-up question, and perhaps it's just a thought-provoker versus a definitive answer. But so you go through the auditing process, and we know that the auditing process is incredibly important to Canadians, to our democracy, to ensuring that there's not an abuse of power either by politicians or by bureaucrats, or ensuring that the rules are actually that are intended are followed through on. Is there or has there been a consideration of a return on investment line to each of the audits that are completed, so that afterwards we can, and they're not all going to be winners. In a business, you don't win every time. But when I look at things like the payment system, Phoenix, and others, the return on investment can be humongous. And other places where we're talking about $1 million program, you might spend a lot of money in consideration of it's only $1 million program, but you need to do those to ensure the processes within those departments are actually being followed. That's it.
And I guess I'll say I wish it was easy to put a dollar number on every part of an audit, right? That's what we struggle with. So, for example, we did an audit a while back on border services, and we identified, I think at the time, that about 700,000 people had come into Canada without showing a passport or without the agents recording, a passport or other identification about those individuals. So I don't know where it is now, but I'm assuming that Border Service Agency has tightened up on that, and that if you went in and looked now, that there would be, hopefully an indication of who actually came across the border in every case. Well, how do you put a dollar value on something like that, right? Which is, that's the hard part of this. Something like, well, I guess I'll go back to our audits of the financial statements of the Government of Canada. And again, I'm not sure exactly how much it costs us, but it's the most expensive audit that we do, to do the audit of the financial statements of Government of Canada. And we'll have a hearing on that when we do the public accounts hearing. But if we were not doing that, what would be the impact, right? I mean, in the course of that audit, we find some things, but we don't find a lot of things because over time, proper internal controls have been put in place to manage money, and yes, we will find things, but they would be much less than what it costs us to do the audit. So again, how do you put sort of a value on the deterrent effect of we've come in and done that audit? So there are times when we do have audits when we find, when we do find actual places where dollars can be saved, and that then puts a focus on it. But a lot of our audits actually, quite frankly, do result in the government ending up spending money in order to fix something. So I wish there was an easy way to come up with how do we put a simple return on investment number on them, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Mr. McCauley?
Great. It's wonderful to have you here. I echo my colleagues' comments about the great work you do. In your departmental report, you state that the growing size of government spending, like an increase of $50 billion per year over a couple of years, increases the audit universe for finance and performance audits, as well as the added complexity. I want to bring this to the new estimates where the government's introduced Vote 40, which is, as the PBO calls, a blank check for $7 billion of spending. I'm just wondering if you could give us your view on this new central vote and how it will affect your ability to audit when there's no real control, so to speak, over it. There's no further votes on it or oversight.
Well, what we end up auditing is how money is spent. So however the money is allocated out of a central budget pool, it will be allocated to departments to do certain things. So once it gets allocated to departments, that's really when our work kicks in. We don't audit sort of the budget allocation process. We audit the actual spending.
The after the fact, but as our Auditor General, who studies government spending with the mandate, obviously, to get bang for the dollar for Canadian taxpayers, is there concern with this new weight of a vote where it's lumped into Treasury Board to spend out without any further visits to committee or parliamentary votes?
Well, again, it's not something that we have examined, but what we would do in any type of audit, if we were looking at a budgeting process, is we'd go back to what are the requirements in the Financial Administration Act, right? And what needs to be appropriated. Is it clear what the money is supposed to be used for, how the money is budgeted for, what the money is supposed to be allocated to, and are there appropriate systems and controls in place to make sure the money is allocated that way? So I can't give you a comment on any particular budget item in the budget because we haven't audited it, but those are the types of things that we would look for. Is there a system in place that will make sure that the money is being allocated to respect all of the appropriate legal authorities underlying it?
Thank you very much, Mr. McCauley. I was generous, okay? You can come and check. I've been very generous with time. I think we are done with questions. I just have, if I may, I think I have 2 or 3 minutes. Just a commentary on the IT and the technological transformation that you yourselves have to go through in your department. I hope this is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of comment, but I hope you've learned the lessons of all the other departments you've been auditing and the mistakes they made when they go through IT transformations, and that you don't do large bites, go small bites by small bites, because we've learned that it's been a very difficult process for many departments.
And that's absolutely a fair comment, and I think a comment that, yes, all departments need to learn is, you know, our biggest system is the system, well, I guess our human resource system, and then also the system that supports our audit working papers. So, you know, any time that we touch large systems, yes, we will be very careful to try to avoid significant mistakes in implementation of those systems.
Well, thank you all for coming this afternoon. I think it's been very instructive. And thank you, committee, for another very good session. Merci beaucoup. Oui.
Should we adopt the main estimates?
Oui, il reste le vote. Est-ce que...
Yes, we're going to a vote. Are we going to adopt?
We adopt vote 1 minus the amount of $17,256,881 that was already adopted in the interim estimates, granted by the granted by the interim estimates 2018-2019. So shall we adopt vote 1? I have agreement. Yes, thank you very much. Shall the chair report the main estimates to the House? Thank you very much, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.